Has it started filming?
I just started filming.
Nina, this will be so calm and peaceful. And
I do not have that.
good sports them like.
Chris Wright needs pens. Of some quality.
High quality, not some quality.
I've got two shoes that I don't use for strategies. I do not.
That caveat just makes it worse somehow.
If I say the lunch, I'll see you.
Yeah. I'm leaving a pack of my stuff. 5 pounds.
You leaving?
Yeah. How to fly home. Back to doing
Yeah, I'm gonna sit now. Alright, sorry for trying to cheat you guys.
That's okay.
Honestly, I would have no idea who you were trying to cheat for. This was very
I was
reciprocal.
trying to
Yes.
figure out who I was cheating for too, but
Can you start the round on camera?
can't cheat if I'm not there.
Yeah, I did already.
It's not my fault.
I just
not
didn't know
my
if
fault.
it reset if the judge does one.
No, so my kid was prepping with both of them, so I don't really see what.
Yeah, whatever.
It shows the correct panel on the
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
It does.
Sorry, man.
It doesn't actually.
But this man is an educator.
I prefer if we
though,
get
man.
started.
This man is an educator.
I haven't educated anybody.
It's not educated.
Okay.
You know what the problem is? I don't have glasses. There's discrimination.
Terrence is on the lateral.
I'm not intellectual.
Fair point.
I love that these are personalized by him.
Are we?
Start now.
Are we
Plans
ready?
are leaving,
Please.
it says.
We're starting?
I have a flight to catch.
Okay,
Please start.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
can
yeah.
you flash me the app now?
Yes, do you have a flash drive?
It kind of.
I do, but it sucks.
Yeah, remember the concealer explosion in my bag?
Oh, yeah. Her computer exploded. It was a whole big deal. It was not to conceal any issues.
That was terrible.
Especially for this debate, flashing and putting things into one document is prep time.
Hmm.
No, we can just drag things into the Dropbox. And then it's faster.
Don't tell him about the Dropbox.
Watch one of them.
Sorry.
This is a high caliber tournament, and only important arguments should decide it. Your Wi-Fi song should lose.
Okay.
You know Adam Benjamin's trying to do that? I think this local actually.
You won it.
Anorexia impacts.
Alright. Wait, weren't we doing this thing so that it's faster?
No.
Wait, by flashing is prep time, do you mean that prep ends when you pull out the flash drive? Or, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Harsh.
Prep begins and prototype.
Slash. Awesome.
Yeah, word.
Wait.
It's just pragmatic
Where's
for
my
this
timer?
round. I need to catch the flight.
Where's my
You guys need to start. You need to not steal breath.
Alright. Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Cool. You good? I'm gonna put the wrong AC again. Yeah.
Okay.
I affirm brackets are for clarity, grammar, gendered language. Part 1 is all supplementing definitions. Merriam-Webster defines odd as natural expectation, so all considered the inherent form of an agent or action. E.g., when I said the watch does tell time, I don't mean the watch is morally obligated to tell time. Rather, I mean the inherent function of watch to tell time. Reasons to prefer A is common usage. Agents makes claim on other agents based on what they expect them to do, even if there was some other definition collapses into minds, would only hold someone to an obligation we expect them to fulfill in the first place. B is linguistic coherence. Skip the linguistic coherence. Only mind can generate logical interps. Wedgwood. Drinking water ought to be clean and safe. No argument. Agent is mentioned, so all can stand for a relationship between an agent and a possible course of action at a time. No one can offer to an agent, particular agent speaking and uttering one not have an agent, not mean have an agent in mind. This is existentially qualified. Prefer since it's the most precise and unpredictable way to interpret the resolution. Otherwise, we'd have no way to divide. These are just reasons to prefer my interp, not to drop them. This isn't a theoretically justified framework, since I'm just giving substantive reasons to prefer a definition of the resolution. Sub B is morality. Normativity stems from the constitutive nature of agents. First, it solves disagreement since the inherent nature of is mandatory good for any agent since it would cease to exist an agent without it. This precludes everything since if we can't explain disagreement, we can never justify anything since people can always challenge a very basic premise of it. This means form is unconditionally good since it is the source of all obligations. So violation is prohibited since that duty couldn't exist with the source of obligation generated, which would be contradictory. Second, actions are by our constitutive aim, or else you're not really acting. It causes to fondness. Activities have aims, not playing chess. That one sling moves pieces on a board. One is aimed to checkmate. If you're not playing chess. You're playing engage in different activity with a different constitutive aim. Action theory precludes morality. Guides actions we have to know what actions before we decide normative status to it. Otherwise, we'd have an arbitrarily making normative claims without having true understanding of our duties. Third, claims are goodness are filtered based on inherent form. Smith. Being a good K1 cannot amount to being good and a K1, a good tennis player, not to be a good chess player. Judgment is goodness based on the relatively kind in question. A good K is not a good quad K. Being a good K must itself set the standard of K has to be for it to be good quad K. This precludes instinctively to have a value judgment before we can judge them, since thinking that an action has a certain obligation positive is a good thing. Part 2 is the aim. The normative structure of an action is only the inescapably binding aspect of our existence of rational actors. Worth. Judgment, moral obligation, or categorical, inescapable obligation cannot be derived from variable contexts. Moral principles have contingent reasons that no finality can be imposed on different moral beliefs. Principle adopt the standpoint superior to variable elements. Necessary content of morality to find in actions, generic features for all moral pieces deal with how persons ought to act. Action finds the necessary content of all morality to generic features provide necessary content for all actions. Generic norm structure tells requirements and agent judgments that the true to the norm structure from action. Freedom and well-being outweigh since A, the most constitutive feature of agency is existence that we use them to assess our engagement in any other activity. B, we can't even doubt them necessary components of our existence as rational subjects since we would exercise the various aspects of ourselves when we would be doing so. C, all theories dictate actions so necessary components of action must be intrinsically valuable. D, the only way for an action agent to be constitutively constrained if it stems from an inescapable part of agency. If the link was rational reflection of pleasure, we can escape any duty by avoiding engaging in thought processes or about our acts or avoiding satiating desires. Thus, the principle of generic consistency, or the PGC, is the only thing consistent to the generalizability of the principles of action. Adam summarizes for worth. Every agent implicitly makes a value judgment about the goodness of the purposes, hence about the necessary goodness of the freedom and well-being. They are the necessary conditions of their acting to achieve the purposes. Because of the necessary goodness, every agent makes a claim beyond the claim to freedom and well-being. Every agent must have claim these rights which is a prospective agent. All prospective agents have the right to freedom and well-being. This precludes 1. Any framework has to regard agency as intrinsically good, since any moral theory wants people to follow that moral theory. 2nd, this constitutes the natural form of an agent independent of any moral theory. Anytime we do anything, we have to concede the natural function of a human is to value freedom and well-being. So, regardless of what theory is advocated for, the evaluation of ends still comes first. Even Scott doesn't take this out since we have self-interested reasons to value our own ends. Thus, the standard is consistency with the principle of generic consistency. Before independently, since any attacks on the moral worth of argumentation concede its validity since it presupposes the capacity to formulate arguments. Hop. Argumentation is practical. For argumentation applies the use of one's body. It is impossible to deny this claim and deny to be truth. Implicitly have to admit its truth. When a person claims that the statement can be justified, they assume that nobody has a right to unabashedly rest against the property of another person. Thus, A, this precludes evidence logical and preferred claims as the government's very condition to produce those claims, and B, that's a prerequisite to any other framework says all other justifications already implicitly concede validity, self-ownership. Part 2, I contend that withholding medical autonomy from adolescents violates the PGC. I will defend the whole rights on balance when flexible, specifying or altering an AC in the C Act. I will defend the plan. I respect the USFG granting minors age 14 about complete medical autonomy. There is no possible fair educational law since the absence of needs solves the specification. First, adolescents ought to be generic right bearers. Gilby 2 warrants. Gorth right that children gain GCA as they develop between 7 and 11 years of age. Children means susceptible agency. Adolescents frequently exhibit decisional competence. Precautionary reasoning requires that acknowledgement of their ostensible agency. To fail to recognize decisional competence is a proof of false denial of the genuine rights to achieve added well-being. And they're similar enough to adults. Phillips 14. Gorth is arguing that prospective persons of agents have full-fledged rights. Adolescents are probably sufficiently like adults to be regarded as approaching status of full-fledged rights holders. Emphasis rights would be more partial since they have sufficient decision-making capacity to serve rights, since the PGC is about the ability to decide and in a gentle manner shall way, since even if they don't deserve specific rights, they deserve generic ones. But first, since there's specific worth, which is it talks about the specific obligations the framework sets up. Skip Wytham Campbell. Second condition, a lack of consent violates adolescents' rights by subjecting them to another will. A slave is no less a slave than the kind master who lets them choose how they spend their time. The master can revoke that privilege. And B, even if adults make desirable decisions to enable one to legislate on behalf of another, places one in that same relationship of dependency vis-a-vis a third power. So subjecting adolescents to another's discretion violates a negative right and thus a perfect duty. I don't violate since I'm taking an action to ensure independence, which is key to the PGC, since it provides adolescents with freedom to self-determination. Impact calc A, the AC is not concerned with the availability of ends, rather the right to pursue them. I do not wrong you by buying the last jar of peanut butter before you go to the store. I violate you if I legislate that you have no right to attempt to purchase peanut butter that subverts your end to which you can direct your agency. B, right to unconditional and not aggregative, since concerns equality between agents and recipients rather than general ends. Contradictions give rights to rise to right them, so maximizing rights isn't relevant since one circular triangle is no less contradictory than two circular triangles. It's C, negative rights constrain positive rights, since 1, if we could violate negative rights, then the moral status of rights bearers is lost, and D, we must grant other agencies' rights and not interfere with their own ends. Montaigne. The attribution of rights is not arbitrary because without sufficient rational justification, mere responsibility would end up being discriminative. The description which gave forth this right is also present in other agencies must respect the claim of other agents not to be interfered with their own rights. Underview. First, if the next justifies competing interest theory and theory are obvious for the absence A, competing interest endorse the best norm for debate. B, theory says you need to be held accountable for your own argument, so thus vote them down with the theories abusive by excluding me from any legit argument for the same reason you vote me down for being abusive. And 1C, 1 AR strap without an argument would be horrible, which becomes impossible to get creating worse forms of the round. Second, skip to the third spike. Violations in TO3 must stem from substantive arguments that are precluded by the interp. In other words, if my offensive function under their interp, there's no violation since A, interps are only meaningful and backed by substantive arguments in the round that says since interps themselves carry no ballot weight, rather they just frame links to the ballot. Critical underview. Critique can only overcome power and produce change when articulated in the language of hegemony. Report 2008. A hybridizing strategy involves taking advantage of the contradictory policies publicly shamed the hegemon and forcing it to remedy injustice and live up to stated commitments. Manipulating the strength within institutions outweigh the hegemon from the industry's hegemony. For this, cultivating allies and adversarial camp as possible. When you speak their language, you build common ground, and the master cannot crush you playing their game. Makes it difficult for them not to give you legitimacy. And the state is an inevitable and indispensable part of social solutions. Accuracy of 4. Draw attention to positive roles, hazing, principally playing global domestic affairs. Given that states need to say whether we elect or not, they can call together beyond the state. Of despair, rejecting the state's frame politics, all non-prohibiting increase demands for the potential of the state as a crucial node. States persist as a major site for power. For the future of any transformation will necessarily be state dependent. Go back to the other spike. Third theory spike. If the applicants all often through comrades in order theory then tells the truth or falsity of all normative propositions and can be linked by topical neg terms, the absence of value mechanism is fair in theory, and he must be reason to drop the arc since A, the transpact abuse game since effective, principle of fair strategy can be run without charge of the ACB, drop the bid or exist or exacerbates already existing VBI verified 7.4% side by since they can't bite the bullet in half to split the already time for 20 or in half this that way since it's a purely verified net result and thus impact terms of fairness arguments.
Okay.
I was literally everything I didn't read.
Great.
I read this.
Yes.
I don't know what's highlighted, sorry.
Oh,
Confused.
yeah.
Oh wait, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, does this have a popper in it? Can I just quickly get an unused cup before?
I mean, you. Okay.
You can start if you want. I can answer questions.
Okay. Noah, what's the warrant in Phillips 15?
Phillips 15 says that adolescence is sufficiently similar enough to adults. For
Why?
example,
What does it mean to be sufficiently similar to an adult?
so the whole point of the framework is that it generates rights claims and like a gentle status based on our ability to engage as practical agents.
What does
So
it
the
mean to
argument-
engage as a practical agent?
The PGC stems from the ability to have freedom of well-being and enact those in a gentle capacity. That means, for example, that if I am an agent, I would set the end of like going to Starbucks. In
What
order
does it
to
mean
do
to
that,
set an end?
so like determine that I want to do something.
How do we determine if we want to do something? If I desire something, is that sufficient?
So the argument is that because
That's a yes or no question.
No, because that completely misunderstands the framework. The yes or
Okay.
no question would just like muddy the waters. The argument is that when I try to pursue any end, I have to inherently value what allows me to pursue that end. So, for example, if I'm trying to set the end of going to Starbucks, I have to unconditionally value the freedom and well-being that allow me to go to Starbucks.
Okay, so it's sufficient that you value your own freedom to be an agent.
It's not about valuing your own freedom. It's about enabling
Okay.
yourself to set that end in a gentle capacity. E.g.,
Okay,
setting
fine.
an end and having the
That's
like a
fine.
gentle capacity to fulfill that end.
That's fine. Yes or no? An agent has to be able to achieve an end to be free. Or considered an agent.
No, I mean like a
Okay,
slave is not
that's
an
fine.
agent just because its like rights are denied. That
That's
seems
not the question. An agent has to be able to... Okay, an agent has to be able to have some sort of comprehension of what ends they have to desire in order to be free.
What does that mean?
Like, some sort of conception of something that could be attributable to themselves. So, for example, an ideal of something that would be good for myself. Yes or no?
It's not about yourself, right? It's about the
Okay,
ability because like
that
the
was a yes or
Montaigne-
no question. I'm
So-
not asking for clarification. I'm asking for yes or no. No.
It's impossible to give yes or no question because that just fundamentally misunderstands the premise.
No,
of the
okay.
framework.
If it is more complex than yes, it is no. If it is more complex than no, it is yes.
It is neither yes or no.
Okay.
Let me explain. The Montaigne card indicates that what generates my rights claims for my own rights is sufficient to generate rights claims for other agents. So the argument is that because like I value my own freedom and well-being, there's nothing different about other agents that would like interfere with that rights claim.
Okay,
so there's
that's
nothing
fine.
about. So yeah, does that make sense?
Sure. Should a 1-year-old be able to wander around a knife factory?
So 1-year-olds are probably sufficiently similar to babies to not have any rights.
Okay, that's a yes or no question.
So
no.
no.
No, they should not.
If
Should
they
a
could-
5-year-old be able
a 1-year-old
to...
a 1-year-old who does not have the ability to set ends in a gentle capacity.
Okay, that's fine.
If there was a
Should a
miraculous
5-year-old...
1-year-old.
Okay, sure. There's miraculous 1-year-old, but in general. Should a 5-year-old who has no comprehension of how to wander around a city be able to divorce themselves from their parents and wander around by themselves?
What do you mean no consumption how to
Like,
wander around the
they
city?
have no idea where they're going, why they are wandering, or why they are independent from their parents, but they've decided that they want to go away based on some inclination in a given situation. Are they allowed to do that? under
So,
the
okay,
effort?
a few issues with that question. So
Yes
first,
or no?
I have to, I cannot answer yes or no questions when your arguments are quite loaded. So the first argument is that there's no conception of what walking around a city means. That means it wouldn't be an action in the first place, because if I don't have a conception of what am I doing, then that is not an action.
Okay.
The second argument is that they're like divorced from their parents and they just have an inclination to do something.
Okay.
That is not sufficient to generate a rights claim, because it's not about an inclination, but rather the ability to set ends in a gentle manner. My inclination to like run up into the ceiling is not a gentle setting of ends, because I'm not doing that. I'm not
Okay,
intending to do
that's
that.
fine.
Running prep?
Yep. I'm going to defend the U.S. implementation
Sure.
above 14. Cool. Are there any pre-standard reasons to affirm the app?
No. Do you know me at all?
I'm checking.
The app isn't a floating pick either.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, stopping prep.
Is it okay? I have 129 left.
Just let me know that switch up.
What's the order?
It'll be NC1 off AC.
He was in a hurry. Larry gave him 2 AC, so I don't want to in the middle of it.
Alright, when you're good.
Wait 1 second.
Okay. Ready?
He's the
No,
What's going on?
no.
NC 1 off AC.
I'm ready now.
Alright, cool. I negate rule-based ethics while warranting rules. It's either vicious, regressive circularity, quality of application of concepts starts by us. All that rule I really by see only if I'm warranted, thinking I'm guided by such warranting. Ethical judgment requires a theory producing circularity, regress that we yield infinite, unfulfillable chain inflation of my being warranted, applying it can only depend on my being warranted, and judging the residual co-op constitutivism, even if we look to things that are constitutive of individual that requires some sort of external standard to determine what is constitutive, which means that it involves this we must ground or a knowledge and truth conducive to FEG of doing. Math is impossible, but I have a friend the calculator, and the calculator is better accuracy than my friend the calculator. Is more truth conducive I choose the calculator. This applies to moral rules. Right? You live to epistemology's cases. It tells us how to be better people in the world and avoid, and when it regress this led to virtue ethics woods and Robertson regulative epistemology to make contents practical and social we see from our own angle not processing comprehensive faculties regulative epistemology aims at nurturing people in the right disposition habits or virtues. Listening to virtuous people gives us a higher probability of performing the right action. Beckwith 13 Aristotle advised when it out one should find a good person ask what the path good is given parallel operation of nuance the brain perfects autonomous categorization of entities days rises due to gradual accumulation of semantic knowledge thus the standard is fostering human virtue. I contend that parents should be allowed to control minor decisions so they can develop virtues in future roles to respect each other by preventing present erotic pursuits. Children need a protective period to enabling virtue including their self-control which is like have autonomy and opportunities. Limited moral experience decisions are not part of the life plan. Children have greater potential for improving their knowledge and for improving skills of reflection and self-control. Abridgment of autonomy is the recognition that although competent limitations of experience, the sort of capacity for judgment. Parents obtain the background knowledge that allow to make decisions better from a parent's impact. Their competency doesn't necessarily even if adolescents are equally competent adults can make bad choices to its net. Preferably help them become virtuous agents B. Freedom as a self-chosen life plan does not exist. Identities form the repetition of acts of Beckwith 13 empirical studies of effects include one of the most robust experience-related dynamics of views. Neural activity when stimuli repeated one being reported through doing because repetition suppression helps in synaptic connections one being informed choices and actions also co-ops the advocacy even it is important that individuals have the capacity to study since they don't believe since everything is not shaped on themselves rather it is based on inclination which means that they are not necessarily independent so it is not a violation of freedom means to affirm a freedom doesn't exist, or rather is a question of what we should do with the freedom we have instead. Preferable act virtuously see long-term autonomy and waste and poor license it provides virtues that we apply for decades as opposed to 7 years in penalty turns the absence high control the link to autonomy better. The adolescents cannot yet will as parent involvement is key. Here says 13 adolescents often harm those they intend to benefit because they do not know how to say about the securing the benefit or because understanding is limited. Rules cannot be applied without practical wisdom because correct application requires situational apprehension amongst the morally relevant teachers. Maybe likely consequences. Adolescents are clueless because they are inexperienced to see the personally disadvantageous nature of a certain action is competing in accordance with its honesty or benevolence. Justice all takes out your arguments about how individuals are might make the same decisions as parents. It's not a question of whether or not there's a higher probability they will be consistent, but rather they have the ability to make that choice for themselves. E. Bad parenting does not turn the ends even if adolescents become emancipated. Fair soul autonomy they have some degree of parental independence, so they must be taught F. Even if a freedom is a virtue, it's a strength of one question I long linked to long-term virtues to the NC always thus the counterplan. Adolescents, doctors, and parents will adopt a shared decision-making model. Mutcherson is a solvency advocate. This regime would allow a person 14 but less than 18 to access healthcare and make binding decisions in conjunction with parents, assuming no objection about parental involvement, triggering exceptions. Power to make decisions would be equally shared. Case. The counterplan overview. The counterplan solves better shared decision-making allows parents to guide adolescents toward a unified practical identity while offering limited decision-making for the adolescent. Mutcherson 2. The proposal involves young people giving opportunities to practice skill and making reasoned decisions. Cognitive developmental theorists emphasize significance of participation and role-playing in determining a moral development capacity to think abstractly as reasoning. For attainment. Attainment requires experience with resolving ethical problems. This seeks to create opportunities. Odd is natural expectation. First, all ages act towards something perceived as good. This is constitutive of moral rules that Aquinas strikes good is the first thing every agent acts for under an aspect of the good. The first principle of practical reason is one to be founded on the notion of good that good is to be done and evil is to be avoided. Prefer it resolves like a prescription in deotic standards as to what individuals ought to do in a situation where there is not a contradiction could subdeny what is legitimate and under the hypothetical imperative. You say that freedom is important, but that just begs the question is what kind of freedom we would value, which means that we default to the NC. We have to learn from other people. B avoids the tailoring objection. There are virtues attributable to rational intelligence, but universalizability cannot pass. They always mean more specific to pass the test. The applicability. You presume ideal circumstances in which all individuals will act rationally based on some sort of mutual recognition, but normative theories must provide applications for real actors' virtue, ethics best selves, and expense complexity, moral decisions for agents who acted improperly in the past. Line by line. You say that constitutivism is able to solve disagreement, but even if it's able to solve disagreement, that would still lead to some sort of external standard. Even if freedom is intrinsic to the nature of action, we need some question as to what relevant features of a specific action are necessary. Also, it is not intrinsic to an action that individuals are basing it based on their practical reason, because we can never have anything that is completely independent from external factors, which means that we have to have some sort of conception of learning from others. So it is constitutive of morality. It is constitutive of our desire for action in the first place, that we have some sort of conception of who we are, which means that adolescents are not it is insufficient for adolescents to have the ability to set a specific end because they don't have a unified identity. Alpha Smith, you say that? Or Alpha Gorth, you say that we have to have beliefs because it deals with how we act, but us having interest in our own freedom relies on some sort of conception of ends we ideally would like to pursue, which begs the question of some sort of external sanity. You say that freedom is well-being. Freedom is well-being is necessary, but it begs the question as to what kind of freedom we care about, and also what kind of well-being we care about. The only person who has a better understanding of what our freedom is would be our parents. Group all of your arguments. You say that group the A through D point. You say that it is necessary because it comes from the way in which we would decide actions. But this begs the question. But Asa point, this doesn't enable us to have some sort of ability to act wrongly in a given situation. E.g., if we always act having some sort of conception of our own freedom, then it would not explain how we'd be able to violate the freedom of others. So which means that the MC is best able to solve off of Gorth. You say that agency is important, but it begs the question of what it would mean for an individual to be an agent. Also, the 2 point is that freedom has to be some sort of conception of having a unified sense of self from which we would rely on. Otherwise, individuals could have contradictory prescriptions. For example, I could desire to go to the moon and also desire not to go to the moon, so we would not have no sort of conception of what action I was specifically taking, which means that adolescents need a basic structure with which to actions, but they don't. Adolescents do not have a stable identity or basic structure by which to time reckons God. Emergence of identity is an important fundamental aspect in the process of identity formation, includes consideration, exploration, and experimentation. The resolution of this does not occur until early adulthood. Values are likely to be expressions rather than representations of personhood. Identity is in flux. The adolescent status of developing agents is an obstacle to inclusion. A keen event requires a respect for their potential to reason superior to as children. Its predicament is an obstacle. Our conduct of children to reflect appreciation of the challenge. We do not treat them as mere creatures of instinct. We have no potential for reason. We should force children to rely on authority in matters in which they are capable. Also independently reads that there's no specific reason to vote off the app, even if it is important that they be included in medical decision making. That's not a reason why they should have the final say. It is sufficient for them to have some sort of discussion with parents. Is also preferable, since that enables them to explain why they would have a legitimate reason for setting a specific end, which means that in situations in which they have a legitimate reason for wanting procedure, they would be able to convince their parents. Off of Hop. Group Hop, and the arguments that are below 1, we learn how to justify things based on societal norms. E.g., we learn from other individuals' arguments are not convincing if we are not accepted, which means that I preclude you. Also, it precludes you on a level. The 2 point is that reasons are not thought of in a vacuum. E.g., something may be reasonable. It also relies on some sort of external standard as what counts as initial reason for action, which can never be grounded, which means that we have to look some sort of theory of coherence. So you default to the NC alpha. Will you say that? Alright, the call for the cards are literally not warranted. Just say that adolescents are similar enough, but if it just the question is what it means to be clear similar enough, if that means that you should default to the NC, because I'm providing a clear conception of what it would mean for an adolescent to be able to set ends. Also, in order to set ends, you have to have the ability to specifically will it. For example, if I wanted to go to the moon, if I had a desire to go to the moon, that would not mean that I intend to do so. We need some sort of which means that adolescents do not have enough experience to make a certain decision, so we should default to other individuals. Okay.
Cool. Usually everything you didn't read.
Sure. The analytics I summarized around, but
Cool. Alright, you ready?
Yep.
What's the warrant in cullity?
sorry.
What's the warrant in cullity?
If we look to external rules for every circumstance, then those will always require external rules, which means that it becomes infinitely regressive.
Okay, cool. Then what's the warrant in wood? Okay, what is a virtue?
It's something of a way of acting rightly towards others.
What is right?
What is right? So first, the NC just says that. Okay.
What is right?
A right?
What is good? Like what is a right
good?
action? What is defined as a right action?
So a right action at first would have to be some sort of action that enables you to set an end or even have a conception of the good.
Okay, so setting ends, the ability to set ends is only right action.
Not the only right action.
But
That's
is that
the one that is
prior right action?
That's what's weighed under the NC.
Okay, cool. What's the warrant in Aquinas?
Aquinas.
Yeah.
So the argument is that all agents act towards some sort of conception.
Okay.
Are you making a face?
Yes, I'm making a face. Where does it define ought?
Where does it define ought?
Yeah.
So the argument.
Does it define ought?
No, but it just co-ops your justifications.
Why does it co-opt my justifications?
Okay, so it says, you say that ought is natural expectation. I make weighing arguments as to why the natural expectation of how agents would act or the rules that would apply to specific agents are most specific to virtue ethics.
What are those arguments?
Okay, so that's the Aquinas. These are the arguments on the A. The Aquinas argument says that good is what individuals act for, which requires some sort of external conception. That's why we learn from others.
So external conception. So it requires an external conception?
Okay. No,
Doesn't Cullity literally say that external conceptions is what leads to infinite regress? Like,
The
how is your framework remotely coherent?
How is my framework remotely coherent? There's a lot of arguments in the framework that are remotely coherent. We can go through them if
Like,
you
you'd
want.
say on the aff flow that we cannot look to external conceptions, and then
No.
your neg flow.
Not solely that we look to external conceptions. It's just saying that individuals setting ends is incoherent and is not sufficient to justify a theory of ethics.
Why?
Why? Because individuals act towards some sort of conception of good, which means that freedom alone or setting ends alone is not sufficient.
Why not?
Why not? Because then individuals do not set ends. We need some sort of conception of what things individuals desire or what reasons individuals have for action.
Okay, so what reasons do you provide?
What reasons do you provide? I provide in the NC that individuals act based on their conceptions of others and that we learn from other individuals, and those provide reasons for action.
Okay, what if my dad was Hitler?
What if your dad was Hitler?
Should I, like, follow him, and should he make my medical decisions? I'm Jewish. Should I let him, like, do experiments on me?
Probably not.
Probably not. So there is some condition on which we don't listen to our parents.
Sure.
How do we determine which parents are good? What about a neglectful parent? What about an abusive parent?
An abusive parent?
What
Okay,
about
so
what if
there's
there's a trans youth whose parents want them to remain cisgender? Do
So-
they listen to their parents?
Sure. There's always circumstances in which there are exceptions, but
Okay.
it's rather a comparative question. There's
Cool,
preempts
cool.
in the NC.
So what happens if the parents and the children disagree? Who decides? Like,
Then-
under your counterplan, who gets the final say?
The parent.
The parent.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so Hitler gets to decide that I get experiments done on
Hitler
me?
probably would not have parental rights
So,
over his
do you
child.
specify anywhere in the NC where which parents get rights?
Which parents get rights?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Good parents?
the
Is it good parents?
no, the counterplan just shifts the status quo in that there's a shared decision making
Okay.
model, like general ways of
Cool.
dealing with terrible parents
Cool.
are still applicable. Oh, I also didn't read the competition underneath the
Cool.
G1.
Uh, 143.
Are you reading anything new?
Yeah, I'm saving the flashlight right now. It's called AT Virtuancy. By the way,
You want to just do this for me?
more than anything.
I got it.
What's the order?
ACNC. Starting with the extension of definitions at the top. Everyone good? Nina, you've considered the definition. If when the definition is game over, because she makes no work under the definition. So extend the Merriam-Webster definition that also justified as natural expectation. Send the Wedgwood evidence, which is game over. Since through no act in the resolution, we cannot look to the natural form of a statement. We say drinking water ought to be clean and safe. We do not obligate a specific agent to act rather than the natural expectation of drinking water to be clean and safe. That means we look to the natural expectation of how adolescents act. This is game over. Her arguments don't make any sense. She's saying that Aquanaut is like we act on the good, but extends Smith from the B point, which says that goodness is determined by the agent, e.g., a good chess player not to be a good tennis player, so something inherent to the agent that finds good assumes that this co-ops goodness. And she said second is like what is a good form? Obviously it's unconditionally good. So extend the first argument under constitutivism, which says that this is unconditionally good because we cease to exist as the agent without it, which is we have no ability to doubt this. Extend the disagreement argument, which says we cannot disagree about it because it's necessary good. Extend disagreement precludes literally everything on the frame of debate, because if we can disagree about things that lead to an infinite regress, we can never justify anything, which takes her preclusion arguments, because her preclusion arguments also land on initial premises. Game over. She says on then her third argument is a tailoring objection. One, there's literally no warrant for the tailoring objection. Don't let her bullshit warrant the next week. Second, it's not specific. I'm talking about generic rights and no tailoring objection. This is not con. You cannot read your con answers, expect them to apply. Her further argument is applicability. Yes, it's applicable to all agents. That's game over on that debate. So you can always extend the fact, and then on the constituency, she says one that's like no external standard for action. And so group refers to justification, but the external justice standard for action. Constitutions co-ops because one, it consistently drives us because that's what our natural expectations would do. Second, it's an external standard because it determines what our form determines what we ought to do, which is it co-ops both. This is external and internal, which co-ops the distinction and gets both of the offense. Then it's going to be really problematic when succeeding the implication under the Adams 2 evidence, which is game over in the frame of debate. Send the Adams 2 evidence, which says we need to value freedom, well-being as a prerequisite to any other. And extend the second preclusion argument says that this, no matter what the framework is, this is a prior question because even engaging in the framework requires freedom, well-being, which means that the evaluation of the ability to set ends is always a prior question, which is game over. You cannot concede framework weighing the debate. And then you can send then you can also extend Hop, which is that the fact that we're having framework debate at all presupposes the ability to argue, which is that we have to have the unconditional rights to our body. Her arguments are really bad. She says that societal norms need to be accepted. This is a prior question. This is a pre-fiat level, pre-fiat reason for my framework, e.g. that her engaging in my responses naturally concede to my framework. Her second argument is that like reasons don't exist in a vacuum. Reasons don't exist in a vacuum. The argument is debate, which is a prior question. You can extend the second contention, which is that we can never subject anyone's other will, because the slave is no less a slave even if the master is kind to them. This means that this outweighs instead of Montaigne evidence that non-intervention is the highest order moral good because we have to allow others to engage in their own ends because we want to engage in our own ends, which is the non-intervention is the highest good. Her arguments don't make sense even if they're not capable of acting. So better to default the adolescents either. We don't have the right to engage in their end. NC framework. One, the biggest overview that virtue ethics is question begging what a virtue is. For example, utilitarians say that maximizing pleasure is a virtuous action, and deontologists say that protecting outer freedom is a virtue. So this means that determining what a virtue is collapsed into the AC. Second, virtue ethics justifies a moral action by committing the fallacy of competition. Soldiers fighting in war for oppressive regimes demonstrate courage or loyalty. This needs some external theory to dictate what actions display virtuous characteristics that are truly virtuous. This also answers equality argument since we need a theory. I'm not infinitely aggressive because this is a natural expectation. Anytime we do anything, we have to concede the virtue of freedom and well-being, which means that this outweighs because it's not we cannot doubt this because this functions as a natural status of agents. And then third, virtue ethics leads to conflicting obligations without a meta-weighing device to resolve. So the framework is non-functional necessity is mine because I can be honest to a fault, e.g. I can be honest to the point where I'm revealing state secrets or telling someone that their spouse is cheating on them when she says the honesty is a fault. And then on the contention, one, turn is virtuous to have rights. It's the prerequisite to engaging in any of the virtues and takes such a very capacity to be agent. This was a CX concession. The ability to pursue rights is fundamental virtue. Ask Bob in the video, and I hope you were flowing for the CX this time, Tom. Yanka writes, flourishing as a community requires having conscious space to master one's own life. Aristotle rejects Plato's argument that citizens merge their wealth to erase the boundaries between them. Not that the ability to favor those projects means most meaningful to each individual, most important to civic flourishing. And second turn is virtuous to grant people rights to demonstrate respect for others as independent agents deserve decency and self-determination. She literally said that they acting on their own right is the only ability to actually engage in any action at all. Moreover, this devolves into the AC virtues, which are principles. Cores guard brackets with gender. Foot is greater than what makes an agent well functions through their principles. Well, then why talk about virtues? If virtues is the third personal name for certain principles, then certain principles of philosophy would be concerned with how can justice make it good to act in certain reasons. The idea of acting in good principles counts as virtues is literally doing no work, which means that this is game over on the debate. Moreover, her arguments don't make any sense. She's talking about a good parent, but they're obviously bad parents, like Hitler, for example. She said that we would not grant Hitler rights, which means that we would not unconditionally grant parents' rights, which means that the AC turns the answer because we always default to the individual because there's no harm that the individual can have. There's no way that an individual can act like a bad decision is not a vice because it only affects them, which means that there's no issue with virtue. However, there is a bad decision if Hitler subjects me to Nazi experiment, so that's the only risk of actually vice occurring, which is you always default out. This is weighing analysis. You should not respond to this. Then it's game over in the anti-contention debate.
Cool. Can you delete what you did not read?
I summarized this if you want that. And I summarized that, but I didn't read the horse house card.
Okay, that's fine.
Ready?
Yep. if you win the definition of ought and I turn the F, is that still sufficient to affirm?
Sure.
Why?
Because the definition of ought just a reason for my framework on a pre-fiat level. Therefore, if you went under the framework, you would win.
Oh, okay, cool. That's fine. Okay. It'll be overview.
Where would you like that float?
You could flow it on the top of the NC. It'll just be how the round will break down. So if you have more space anywhere else, you could also flow it there. Then NC app. Alright, when everyone's good. Overview, I will concede the framework would go for my recontextualization. He does not extend a single coherent argument in the 1ER as to what it would mean for individuals to have a conception of freedom. He concedes terminal defense to the F. That is the implication under Beckway 13, which means that any risk of offense will be sufficient to be able to trigger in the end. The only argument that he goes for in the 1ER is that there's bad parenting, but this is explicitly preempted in the E point subpoint. So far as I'm able to take that out, there's always need to be offense. He's also conceded reasons that adolescents literally do not have the ability to set an end, which means that we are not violating their rights. That is located in the last page, which means that he has no offense. NC? Extended Beckway 13, listening to virtuous people makes it more likely that we correctly take the right action. Nurse categorize entities and we acknowledge their experience. That is a reason that is independently more preferable for the parents of an individual to give the conception of what action to take because it's more likely to be consistent with themselves and they have a better understanding of the world around them. That also is a reason that adolescents are more likely to take an action that is consistent with themselves because they will learn what it even means to set an end. They have conceded also to the parents to be able to enable minors to grow. They need self-control to advance opportunities. This is independently takes it out of the F. Even if individuals do not have a conception of what ends they would specifically want to set, then we do not violate their freedom because they will violate their freedom themselves. There is no reason that cannot happen. You say that extend the 2 point that it enables them to create a unified conception of a lifeline. You have conceded that you cannot be willing and if you don't have a conception of what ends can be attributable to you, your line by line. You say that it isn't. You say Yanka says that it's virtuous to have rights, but individuals will not have rights. Rather, they will have the right to do wrong to themselves, which is not right in the first place. Since it would be self-defeating, that means that goes away. Extend the 3 point that it would enables them to have critical reflection. This enables them to stand away from their desires and determine the things that will be right for them, which is incredibly bad. Given that you conceded weighing analysis as to why I would outweigh on having long-term autonomy. Extend the 4 and then the 4 a warranted for also to use that experience and background knowledge of the parents enables adolescents to have the best of decisions. You say that it is virtue. And that also takes out your arguments about how it's virtuous to grant people rights. Sure, it is virtuous to grant people rights. It would also be virtuous to grant individuals' parents the rights to make a certain decision in certain circumstances, which means that we need to murder private maker. That is the NC. You've also conceded the ace of point that competency does not matter. It is better to cultivate knowledge, which means that that's terminal defense. The F. Even if it is the case that adolescents have the ability to make choices, it is not a violation of freedom. Rather, it is an extension of their freedom to enable something else aside for them. Extend the piece of point that Beckway that we learn through repetition where the freedom as a self-chosen lifeline is non-existent. Rather, it is not better to be shaped by others. You can vote on this argument. This is literally terminal defense of the F. It's implicated that way. You dropped it, Noah. Don't do that. So, you've extended the CISA point that long-term autonomy outweighs if there's terminal defense the F and reasons that individuals are not independent anyway. That means that there can never be a violation of freedom because we're not preventing them from setting any end because they're not setting it in the first place. Also, and then CISA point that her size 13 that adolescents cannot yet will end parental involvement. That parental involvement is key. That is a reason that you say that that individuals are contingent on the will of the parent, but rather not contingent on the will of the parent. Their wills are united, which enables that adolescent to be more free and long-term. Extend the CISA point that parenting does not turn the NC. They can be emancipated. Living at home means that there is some sort of dependency. It's a bad example of Hitler, but there are lots of situations and it would be really problematic for adolescents make the choice for themselves. For example, individuals who have been bullied and have anorexia and then would not submit themselves to treatment and then would die. That would be really problematic. So it should not be an issue of examples. Rather, it should be a rather it's a probability question. Bad parents will individuals will be emancipated from bad parents, which means that is not unique. But there's always a situation in which adolescents will be subject to their bad wills in which they die. You've conceded weighing analysis. That weighs ace of point is that always on negligence individuals. No ability to set ends. That is self-defeating. Piece of point is that weighs on probabilities since that happens all the time. That adolescents make terrible decisions. Whereas there's emancipation and other mechanisms that are necessary and stats go to overcome your impact. The piece of point is that weighs on is that always on is that it would outweigh on longevity since it would impact individuals for the entirety of their life. You've also conceded the F point that even if freedom is a virtue, it's a strength of link question. So I linked to long-term virtues to the NC outweighs, which means that even if you read arguments as to why the NC would collapse to the F, then that is that argument as why it is important to have freedom. It is a question of what kind of freedom we have to have, which means that the NC always go to the AC. Actually, extend the counterplan. Extend the counterplan that we should have a shared decision-making model, not extend the mattress into evidence that shared decision-making allows parents to guide adolescents toward a unified practical identity while offering a decision-making for the adolescent. Go to the case arguments. Extend the terminal defense, the argument, the framing issue on the bottom of the case that individuals, in order to have the ability to act independently, they need some sort of unified conception of themselves. Extend the superior to analysis that adolescent status as a developing agent as an obstacle to inclusion, and I can extend to also the superior evidence that unsetting is a process developed moral agents undertake that is governed by a unified perspective that expresses the practical reason adolescents this unity because they cannot resolve conflicting mutable claims. There are multiple implications. The one point is that there's terminal defense to the absence. Adolescents who have a legitimately good reason for action would be able to explain that to their parents, and their parents would act on their behalf, which is independently terminal defense. The effort is not to enable them to act autonomously. The 2 point is that adolescents are not setting an end in the affirmative world because it is you say that non-intervention is the highest good because we let others do things independently, but the 1 point is that it is not for example, we would say that it begs the question of whether or not they have the ability to set an end in the first place. For example, we would not say that it is problematic to prevent a baby from walking through a knife store, rather so it begs the question of whether or not they are setting an end or if there's some sort of interference that is being carried out in the negative world, which there is not. So all my arguments function as tiebreakers. You've conceded that there's literally no coherent argument as to what it would mean for individuals to have the capacity to set ends. So the round will break down really simply. There's a bunch of ways in which you can negate. So the first way you can negate is that there's reframing issues of what it would mean to set an end. So the first one is that individuals have to have the capability to actually set that end, not just desiring it. That's the moon example, e.g. you can't just desire to go to the moon, you have to actually will that. That means that if the AF advocacy does not prove that adolescents have the capacity to legitimately will an end, rather that they only have the ability to desire it, that is insufficient. He's conceded the Hearst House analysis on the NC, which means that adolescents cannot actually will an end, which means that parents are the only ones who are obligated to guide them. That means that there's weighing analysis as to why it would outweigh on long-term virtue, so you can pull the trigger there. The 2 point is that there's lots of terminal defense to the AF. The first argument is that individuals would be able to convince their parents, which means that there is no violation. The B point is that adolescents aren't able to set ends in the status quo, which means that there's no violation of that. Insofar as that is the case, literally any offense off the NC is sufficient to pull the trigger. And the C point is that there's terminal defense to the AF, because in any situation where adolescents are not dependent on their parents and they are independent, they have the ability to become emancipated, which means that there's no right violation. So you can pull the trigger on any of those. Negate.
Alright, I had... How much did I have? Does anyone remember how much I had?
I think...
Was it 129?
129 was me.
Wait,
You can just give yourself like 130.
is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Wait. Starting prep. What was your argument on Yonka that you won't have rights just to do harm to yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. So the order is going to be an overview you can flow on the AC contention. And then it'll be on the NC. Can I have some water first? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Alright. She tries to collapse and cross-apply all of her offense. The problem is none of her offense links. She's conceded Montaigne, which is a framing analysis. She's conceded contention 2. Contention 1 is a total red herring. Decision-making capacity has literally no implication to the act. The only thing is the rights violation. So let's extend Montaigne first. Extend Montaigne, which says that non-interference is literally the only thing that matters in Worth, because the whole point of Worth is that I value my own ends to action, and because no agent is different than me, that I have to value their ends to action, which means that the only impact is that I do not interfere with other ends. As long as I'm winning, that the neg interferes with other ends, that is sufficient to win. This means that her counterplan is definitely worse under the act. She can send the fact that the second contention is that the slave is no less a slave if they're dependent on a good master, because the master still can revoke that privilege, which means that even if the parent is good, even if the parent is virtuous, that is irrelevant to the act because they're still enslaving their own child. Even if the child cannot make a decision about calculus itself, this still puts them in a place of dependency, even if it would be bad for them to make decisions under virtue ethics. This is irrelevant under Worth, because Worth does not care if you're a bad agent. All that cares is that we value other people's agents. This also implicates in a second way because it takes out of terms because adults who are our agents cannot violate other people's rights. So this links into the second contention a lot of ways. The second contention had zero defense on it, which means if I'm putting defense on her other cross applications, you affirm on risk of offense. That is the strongest link. Let's go to her terminal defense arguments. Her terminal defense's arguments that they can't make actions. They can cross by the argument. The second thing is like they can't make actions independently, like the baby in the night store. It doesn't matter. It's better to allow a baby in the night store. This is a Montaigne analysis. It's better to allow a baby go in the night store than actually enslave that baby in the first place. The whole point is that we have to reject slavery. We have to reject oppression. This is going to be outweighing, and this doesn't even matter. None of her stuff links. And then let's go to the NC offense. Her NC cross applications were terrible. They don't make any sense. There's no reason why any of them link to the framework. She just makes these new cross applications to the 2-minute where they're like key to maximizing virtue in the long term. Except the argument from the AC, which is that rights are an unconditional good because one circular triangle is no less contradictory than 2 circular triangles. This is the contradiction argument is unconditionally good, even if we can. It's not a fungible good. E.g., I cannot decide when to have goods and decide when not to have goods. It means we cannot look to long term virtue weighing analysis. If weighing analysis goes away, it does not link to the aft. Moreover, you will always error aft. You can send the first argument, which is the Yonka argument, which is that, and the analysis above Yonka, which is that this is the independence is the highest virtue because it's a prerequisite to engaging in other virtues. This is the CX concession that she handled. She completely mishandled. She considered weighing analysis. She literally said in cross-examination, the biggest virtue is to be able to decide what you do for yourself, to have self-determination. She did this outweighs another weighing analysis point that was conceded. This is the prerequisite to engaging in any other virtue. Even if she has other virtues that she's promoting in the long term, we cannot even access those because the children do not have the self-dependence, the independence to engage in those. We think that that's outweighs. So her only response is they have like right to do bad things to them. That is irrelevant. The fact that we have the ability to do bad things is how we cultivate virtues in the long term. The fact that I have to decide for myself and actually make good virtuous actions is how we engage in virtues. This is the Yonka evidence. This is very compelling evidence. So even if she's winning that virtue ethics turns the NC, I'm still controlling the internal link in virtue ethics. E.g., I determine what it means to be a virtue. Except the argument was just that virtue ethics collapse into the AC because a virtue just mean for a right. E.g., I have to do a good thing, which means that collapses into the AC because the AC contextualizes what a good thing is. E.g., reflecting non-interference, which means that even if none of her virtue offense links, because I have to link through my AC filter of a framework, and the filter of a framework only literally says non-interference matters. She's interfering with their independence because she's allowing adults to legislate on their behalf, which is a violation of independence. There is no possible violation in the Afro because I'm just allowing them to do things, which means that there's no possible way that I engage with anything. The AC is functionally a nib because there's no way I'm engaging in a violation of self-dependence. There's a risk of offense to you affirm there. There's no terminal defense. Yeah.
There's that her. I'm like full, so it doesn't matter.
I see the Yonk argument or whatever it is.
Sure.
What are you complained about my flowing CX?
For good reason.
Wait, I gave you a little bit more credit for your sass on that line before realizing that you wrote it.
I wrote it in prep.
That's what you use your prep time for.
Also, isn't it better to tell him that like NCX to remind his ass to plug?
It's true, it's too late.
Can't do everything. Thank you. Do you guys see anything?
Sorry.
There's no.
You just have like metals falling out everywhere.
Struggle with
You really would be.
Let me look at Montaigne as well.
Sure.
Oh yeah, go for it. I don't know.
The car that run out to start with an H.
Hearst House.
Hearst House. That was, I think, in the NC. It's here. I can scroll to it, but it's like.
Can I take this back? Do you guys mind if I took executive action and shut off the streaming?
Go for it. Execute.
Or wait, should we film our
Our
views?
No.
I need to bounce early.